Welcome everyone on this 23rd anniversary of 9/11, auspicious day. So welcome. We're really excited to work with you tonight. If you don't have your guitar handy, please have it handy because we're going to ask you kind of play on your own. We're going to leave your mics off, but we definitely want to get you playing more tonight than we have in the past. That was certainly one of the goals of this session, which is called um, jamming with um, oh, jamming with jam tracks. All right, we good with that? Everyone can see that now, right? Just to make sure. Okay. All right, so this is kind of what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to have you experience, if you haven't already, and again, this same kind of concept goes. Some of these things might be basic if you're a more advanced player, so just bear with us. But hopefully, we going to be introducing this concept to folks that haven't used it in the past. So we're going to have you experience playing along with a jam track. We're going to talk about jam tracks, what they are, why use them. We're going to demonstrate just taking a simple scale pattern and shows how we can use that over a jam track. Use that pattern to make music along with the jam track. We're going to talk key concepts in soloing, um, playing along with these things, and certainly some Q&A. So with that being said, and again, as always, if there's any questions, just don't hesitate, raise your hand. We'll get right back to you. So a jam track, also known as backing tracks, is an instrumental musical audio track. And through the wonders of the power of the internet, we are now have an inexhaustible amount of these things available online. There are backing tracks for tunes, there are backing tracks for single chords, there are backing tracks for styles like bluegrass, country, rock, jazz. There's just an infinite number of these things out there. Um, and they are used as a practice aid or just generally to have fun. So with that being said, where do we get them, right? So in our world, YouTube is the easiest source of free backing tracks. And I would use the word backing track in your search. Jam tracks will work. I, I tend to put in backing tracks, which tends to work better for me. If anyone's taken an online course and like a recorded online guitar course or music course, often that will contain their own backing tracks as well. So Dave, let's turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And let's turn it over to you, Dave. And this is Dave Crout, my partner in crime here with this brigade. And he's going to kind of do a little demo on finding backing tracks.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here and thanks for your service. What we're going to show you here is, all right, so I'm going to share. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So in YouTube, you can search for anything under the sun out here. You can search for any type of backing track that you want, and chances are you'll find it. So I have one search that I put up there already, an A major slow pentatonic scale backing track. And when I search for that, I come up with all these different backing tracks. But if I wanted to if I wanted to search for, so if I wanted an A minor slow pentatonic scale backing track, this will give me a whole wealth of backing tracks for A minor.
Hey, Dave, just for
Yes.
just for you know grins and giggles or whatever they say, type in Beatles backing track for me.
Okay, so there's a
Yes.
Beatles backing track.
Don't
So
let me down. Okay. All right. No, my point was for everyone that it's not just chords or progressions, it's tunes. So chances are you can find if you're working on a tune and you want to work on that tune a little bit more, you can probably find a backing track for that
Hey,
tune.
Dave, before you leave that, scroll down a little bit to the black screen. I want to show you something. This is something else when you're searching. Nope, go up. The
Right
Beatles.
there.
So that looks to me like that whole site is backing tracks, plural.
Yeah.
So, you could, like, if he doesn't have to do that, but if he goes a full playlist to the right there, you'll see
Look at that.
all
Jeez
of those are
Louise.
backing tracks.
Wow. All right, great. Well, thanks, Dave.
Okay, I will stop sharing and
Okay.
all yours, Ken.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving forward, why? Why use them? All right, if it isn't patently obvious, the backing track acts like a band behind you. It provides a rhythmical foundation for your practice and playing. Okay, it helps you, the player, how to play with good time, which is honestly the number one most important thing you can do. Play with good time, right? You can learn how to play over single chords, chord progressions and turns like we just said, all right? So that being said, what we're going to do tonight, we are going to work with two backing tracks. We're going to start simple, like what we call level 1. We're going to play around with that, and then we'll amp it up a little bit. Then we're going to go to a 4-chord progression. We picked relatively slow backing tracks. We want to build success into this program. So we're going to work on a major scale, pentatonic scale. All right. What is a pentatonic scale? If you're not aware of, penta, Latin word for 5. So the pentatonic is a 5-note scale that's built from the major or the minor scale. Okay, so we're working with a major pentatonic in the key of A. Everything we do tonight, everything we talk about applies to all 12 keys. We just picked A because that's a real nice, friendly guitar key. Okay, so we're going to use the A major pentatonic. Where does that come from? Okay, so just if we look at the musical alphabet, each major scale has 7 notes. Okay, in the case, and so we've got a scale degree, which is the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if we write out the A major scale underneath it, A is 1, which is the root of the scale because it's the A major scale. And then the notes in the A major scale, which has 3 sharps, is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp. G sharp is number 7. And then number 8 goes back to the root. That's the octave. So 7 notes for the major scale. So for a major pentatonic, we take 5 of those. And the scale formula is 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. So the first, second, third, fifth, and sixth note of the major scale forms the major pentatonic. So in the key of A, it would be A, 1, B, 2, C sharp is number 3, E, the 5 chord, and 6, F sharp. So that's your A major pentatonic, okay? So the major pentatonic scale formula is first, second, third, fifth, 6 notes from the major scale. So again, just make sure we understand everything we're doing tonight applies to every key. We're just isolating one key, okay? So let's take a pattern for this scale, okay? Beautiful thing about this instrument that we play is we have these patterns that are all movable scale patterns, okay? So we're going to look at this pattern, which is the major pentatonic from the low E string, starting on the 5th fret, okay? So if you look at this diagram, you've got 3 red dots and a bunch of black dots, okay? So the red dots are the roots. So A, and A, right? So in this 2-octave pattern, because it's 2 octaves, major pentatonic, I have A, 1 octave, and then another octave. Right? So if I start, I'm going to start this pattern with the middle finger on the 5th fret. Okay? It's a movable shape. If I started here at G, I have the same scale pattern for a different key. So in our case, A. So A, B on the 7th fret, C sharp, E, F sharp, and A. So feel free to play along with this, right? So A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, A. There's the first pentatonic scale from that shape. Okay? Notice my hand doesn't move. It stays in position. And position means this is 4th position because my index finger is actually on the 4th fret. And I know that term is used in different ways sometimes on the guitar, but if you see like a piece of music and it's for guitar and it says, 3rd position, 4th position, that's where your hand situates, okay? So notice how my hand doesn't move. My middle finger has the 5th fret. My ring finger has the 6th fret. My pinky has the 7th fret. And my index finger has the 4th, middle the 5th, ring the 6th, pinky the 7th, okay? And then we can play the 2nd octave up. So if we start with A here, A on the D string, so there's my 2nd octave. A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, A. And then it also has the B, which is that last black dot up there. And that's there because my pinky is right there. I don't have to move. I don't have to change position. So play that, if you would, just play that a little bit. And then we're going to jump into a jam track and kind of see what we can do with that. Okay, so now what we want to do, we're going to pull up a jam track. Okay, we're going to listen to it first. And then we're going to try to play along with that using this pattern. So before we start the track, the first thing we want to do with these kinds of things, again, this is strictly my approach, is I want to listen to the track before I start playing just a little bit. I want to hear the track, I want to make sure I know where the beats are, especially the beat 1 of each bar. That's important, okay? So if you want to start the track, Paul. So if you take that little kind of, so wherever you're at, so for example, if you want to put it back on, Paul. I'm going to play the roots. Play the 1. Play the first 2 notes. Play the first 5 notes, or the first. Play the whole pentatonic. So A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, A. Now, So now we want you to try to play along with this a little bit. You're comfortable with this pattern. You can play more notes. If you're new to this pattern, try just the first 2 notes or the first 3 notes. So A, B, C sharp. Go up, come down. So hopefully you're all playing right now, and keep doing that. This has a good groove. Time is good. Time doesn't mess up. Kind of like working with a metronome, but a lot better, in my opinion. A lot more fun than using a metronome. For those of you who are familiar with this scale, you can play it in other places, obviously. There's this concept of safe notes. And so if you stay inside this pattern, all these notes are safe. They all work. I'm literally just playing notes from those 5 notes. You don't always have to start on the root. Well, that was a bad note there. All right, let's stop there. All right, so let's, we get any feedback from the audience? That would be helpful, kind of see how that was for you guys and gals.
I can see how it could be really helpful in my journey.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to can you expand on that a little bit? Yeah.
Well, I have my 10th lesson today.
Oh, congratulations.
With, thank you, with Glenn Morris. He's a really good teacher. And he was trying to get me to play some kind of a rhythm tempo, for lack of a better word. And I'm kind of struggling with it right now. So this is very helpful for me.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, I know in my first experience with this was brutal. Like trying to play scales over a backing track, because the backing track doesn't miss. You know, it's always going to be a beat 1 when it's supposed to be. You know, so as a beginner, I would recommend keeping it real simple.
Hey,
Yeah, that's
Ken.
what Glenn mentioned too. Just use the ones. He said just do the ones, and then do the 1s and 3s. So
Mark,
yep.
I started
Mark,
practicing. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Mark. When you're hearing that jam track, are you able to kind of hear where the 1 is?
Not really.
So
Not really.
This is kind of interesting because it said a single chord jam track, and what they were doing was playing an A, then to a D just for a little bit, but it was staying generally in an A, but the pattern they were giving over the A droning chord was this repetitive. Ken, I'm wondering if I played again, if you would do that old trick of showing us with your hand count where the one keeps coming in at. So like even if you're lost and you're just trying to pick it up in the middle, how you could find the one.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's listen to it and let me see if I can, based on what the musicians are doing or what the recording's doing. Yeah. This one doesn't have a count in. A lot of the backing tracks will count it in 1, 2, 3, 4.
Am I still sharing?
Yeah, so go right back to the very beginning. One. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. Are you hearing it? The bass player is always going to be on beat 1.
And the way I hear it as a guitar player, the guitar kind of riff, there's a chord that's hit twice, bam, bam, before they quickly jump on the D chord. And every time you hear that A chord, bam, bam, that's the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
A, A. So that's kind of to me where that A chord is always going to be that first note.
Yeah.
The other thing, Ken, maybe I'll stop sharing too, because I love what was said about simplicity, and I'm wondering if you could bring up the pattern again.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things when we show, and Kathy, I know you said it looks like a different pattern than you learn. There's 5 patterns, so you're 1/5 of the way through. Tonight you'll be 2/5 of the way through. One of the things I'd like you to think about is all of these pentatonic patterns that are blocked out like this. To simplify it, you can just say, I'm going to ignore all the dots except the dots on the 3 highest strings. Or maybe you only want the dots on the A string, the D string, and the G string. So for example, if we were to just go with the dots on the E string, the high E string, the B string, and the G string, you kind of see it makes this little, some people call it a house. There's a little roof there on the 6th fret of the G string, and then you got 2 walls on the 7th fret of the E and B and the 5th fret of the E and B. And you could play along to that jam track just trying to create some music around those 4 or 5 little notes. You don't have to feel like you need every single one. And sometimes that's a nice way to simplify things as well.
So you're talking about the top 3 strings, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. You can isolate, and like I said earlier, these are all safe notes. I want to demonstrate one thing real quick. Can you put that track back on, Paul?
I sure can. We're getting pretty good at the sharing stuff, aren't we?
So I want you to listen for a second. And if your mic is on, if you would turn it off, that would be helpful.
Ken, I'm just going to say, if you could lean in when you're talking over the soundtrack, we could hear you a little bit better.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just lean in when you're talking over the soundtrack and we can hear you a little better.
Okay, how's this?
Good.
Okay, so A major, right? So A, C sharp, A, B, C sharp. First three notes of the pattern. So A major is a safe note. If I play a minor or C, listen. Now, you might describe that as weird. You might describe that as jazzy. You might describe that as hip. A lot of ways, but the C doesn't fit as like the C sharp, which makes it the major. 1, 2, B. Okay? So the C is not really a safe note. However, if I do this, so what I'm doing is I'm playing A, I'm playing safe notes, A, B, and C sharp, but I slide that C in there. So B, C, C sharp. So now I'm using a note that's not in the scale, the pentatonic scale, right? But now I'm using it as a color note. A, B, C sharp, A, B, C, C sharp. So these other notes that are outside of the scale, like this 5-note pentatonic scale, it's not that you can't use them. You can use them, but you use them often on upbeats or use them to resolve that. Make sure you resolve it to another note. There's a big difference between if I stop A, B, C, it leaves you hanging there. It doesn't sound right. But if I do, so if you're able to play around with that, A, B, C, and C sharp against the backing track.
I just wanted to jump in for a second, Ken, and just expand a little bit on what Ken's talking about with the safe notes. What if you play only the note, like in that pattern he was showing, like in all those notes in that pattern, if you play only those notes, then in the key of A major pentatonic, you're not going to play a wrong note. I mean, all those notes are in key and they'll sound okay, but like what Ken just demonstrated is you can go out of key if you use it like as a passing tone. But if you just follow the notes in that pattern, you're not going to play a wrong note.
I got a question. What do you mean the concept of safe notes? I'm not real familiar with the safe notes.
That's what I was just trying to explain. The safe notes are any one of those notes in that pattern that Ken showed. Like if you, in that pattern, in that scale, if you only play those notes, any of those notes over the backing track, you will not, all those notes are in key, so you won't hit a wrong note. They're all in key.
I see.
Another
Okay.
way to think about that is if you just pick up a guitar and play any note anywhere or any series of notes anywhere, you're fine. As soon as you put a backing track on, we're locked into a key, which means roughly the major scale notes will be beautiful over it, but there might be some notes outside of the key. For example, when Ken was showing the pentatonic in A, we had a C sharp. A C might work, but it might not, depending on if there's additional chords in the chord progression. So the home key kind of decides that. And that's why guitar players love starting with the pentatonic, because doesn't matter if you switch chords. If you stay in the key, doesn't matter if you switch chords. If I hit any of those notes, are going to be safe, meaning they won't sound out of key.
Yeah, so we got a couple of comments I want to address if I can here. So Kelly, it's a different pentatonic than the one I learned. So One thing I would suggest is when we use the word pentatonic, make sure you use the adjective major or minor.
Yes, that's where I wasn't thinking, and the one I was thinking was minor, and then I just realized we're playing a major, and that's where my confusion was.
Yeah.
So my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's no problem. No, it's great. I'm glad you asked it. Here's the thing. If we say A major pentatonic scale, 5 notes pentatonic, A major, A, B, C sharp, E, and F sharp. You can play that. You know, there's 6 A's between the 1st and the 12th fret, right? There's 6 B's. So there's A's all over here, and you have multiple places where you can play that. We're just picking one spot. We're just, for the purpose of tonight, it's this pattern right here that I showed earlier. And by the way, there's a handout in CAVARTS that has that pattern in there, and it's got the outline for tonight's session, okay? And then Matt, just want to verify, playing the A and B on the top string, correct? Do you mean, is the pattern I shown, is that actually A and B? Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Yeah, I must not be playing it right, because I was playing them on the top 6 string, and I don't see your fingers go anywhere near the 6 string.
So
top
6 string is the low E or the high E?
The top.
Okay, right
the
here.
fattest string.
So here is an A right here. 5th fret of the high E string. And here's a B. A, B.
And on the low string, the low E string, it's the same. There's A on the 5th fret and B on the 7th fret. So
Yeah,
you're still playing
that's what-
A and B on the low strings also.
Yeah, it's the same. You got that, Matt? A, B, A, B. Good, okay, all right. So now, it's time to go to level 2. Now, we are going to, let me share screen real quick. Okay, level 2. Now, we got a different backing track. This one's a little slower, but it's 4 chords. And one of the great things about this track is they've got the 4 chords listed like on the screen the entire time. So it's 1, 6, 2, 5 is a progression. 1, 6, 2, 5. Okay? So those numbers would apply to any scale. In the key of A, 1 is A, 6 is F sharp, 2 is B, and 5 is E. 5 is the E is the 5 of A. Okay? So this progression is going to go through 4 chords, 1, 6, 2, 5 repeatedly. So what I want to do is listen, and then let me just play along a little bit, and then just demonstrate a couple little things, and we're going to have you do the same thing on your own, just like we did for level 1. So I'll stop sharing. Paul, the track is yours. So again, first thing, listen. Want to try to hear the changes? All right, don't cheat, Paul. One, two, three, 4, 1. Now, if you're not sure, try to play the root note. Okay? So the root notes are either going to be A, F sharp, B, or E. Okay? So the quickest way of figuring out if I'm struggling where it is play the root. So I'm going to play a B, E, A. sharp. I'm playing beat 1, 2, 3. B, just a 5. Goes back to 1. So A, F sharp, B, going to E. We're here. Back to A. So, how do we approach this? You want to stop for a second, Paul? Okay. So the first thing I want to make sure, right, is I can get my fingers on an A, an F sharp, a B, and an E. Right? So if I'm a beginner, like, okay, before I play along on the backing track, I would do something like this. I would put my metronome on. I don't know if you can hear a click.
Yeah.
But I would try to find an A. Try to find an F sharp. Try to find a B. And an E. So as a beginner, just make sure you can get your finger on the root note, wherever you're playing it. You could be playing it up the neck, down the neck, or in this position right here right? That's step 1. Before, so just be sure I know where A, for this backing track, 1, 6, F sharp, A, 1, F sharp, 6, B, 2, and E, 5. So that's kind of step 1. And if you're struggling, I want you to just try that. If you know where these notes are, then okay, great. Try playing the pattern over the progression. Okay? Or the first 3 notes. B to E. Right? So just play a few notes starting from the root. So A, you could try 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. A. You know what, Paul? Can you put the track on? So I'm going to just a couple little places, levels. Right? F sharp. So I'm just going to play F sharp. E. B again. And E. Okay? Now, back home A. So if that's where you need to be there until you can get that, and you can get every bar beat 1. Be on the root. That's the place where you want to start. If you can do that, then 2 notes, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, and back again. A, B, A. So 1, 2, 1 of each chord. Not technically 1, 2. The first 2 notes from the root as that major pentatonic. So it'll be F sharp, A, F sharp. Okay, so let me stop playing.
I just wanted to say, maybe I should have mentioned this earlier. I don't want to assume anything here. So when you see a backing track laid out like this, at 60 beats per minute, what this is telling us is there's 2 measures that we're listening to of that A. So it's a very slow 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 measures of the F sharp, 2 measures of the B. We have an E, 1 measure, an E7, 1 measure, before everything just repeats again.
Yep, that's it.
The other thing is with this one pentatonic shape, remember there's 5 of them, but with this one pentatonic shape to get you started, yes, it's good to know these chord changes and your ear can start to pick them up. But remember when we said any of those notes are safe notes, you could play any of those notes over the A, the F sharp, the B minor, the E, or the E7 in our A major pentatonic scale, and you will be fine. You don't have to think about, well, I need to be on the F note over the F sharp minor. That's one possibility, but any of the 5 notes will sound good and pleasing to the ear. If you don't know your note names, what I would say is start with the root, noodle around over a jam track, and then whenever it goes to the 1 chord and starts over again, try and land on the root, and you'll start to see that your ear kind of likes that. That's what we call resolving to the root. So again, any of those 5 notes are fine. Some of them are more melodic than others, and that's kind of why going back to that root note is really, really important. Anything else, Ken?
No, I think I wanted to let everyone try for a few minutes and then we'll turn it over to you, Paul. So I think what Paul said is really good, and I have to try to always remember, you know, that some people work solely with shapes, and they're not sure that that's an F sharp. So I have to. Thanks for reminding me of that, Paul. However, that approach is really helpful in terms of learning this fretboard, which and if anyone spent a minute with me, know that I'm a big proponent of that. The last thing before I turn it over to Paul, this is an excellent way of practicing your chord transitions. So you could strum along to the backing track. A, F sharp, B minor, A, and E7. Back to A. So it's not just single notes. It's perfect for practicing your chord transitions. And, so I hope, is there any comments from I'd be curious to how that level 2 went for anyone who wants to speak up. I'd be curious to know.
Well, it helped me. I do know my notes on the 6th string, but I hadn't really thought much about playing the chord progression with a backing track. And it's kind of helpful too to just like pick, the chords, and then to switch over and do the, and pluck, so you can mix plucking with, and then I just thought that was real helpful, and I hadn't really thought to do that. So
good. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? All right, one last plug. Dave did a couple sessions ago. Dave had put a nice one on triads, and that would be a perfect application of using triads and practicing your triads with backing tracks, whether triads chords, all 3, or just the individual notes of the triads. Again, it's a great way of learning how to manipulate chords to make music, because that's the goal of all this. So I hope you find this helpful. Paul, I think we're going to turn it over to you at this point. And
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about how important it is for some of us learners to know their fretboard. I think we've got another whole guitar brigade session that we did on that as well. Other questions? We got just a couple minutes. I thought it'd be good. We are really growing in Guitars for Vets. We get new graduates that join us often, and we have people that hear about CAVARTS in the G4V Learning Center. I think we're up to about 1,600 members. And so there's just a lot of content on the CAVARTS website. So I was just going to take over the screen, just do a really quick, how to navigate. And then I wanted to drill down on a few resources that are in there now that kind of support a lot of what we're talking about tonight. All right, so are people seeing my computer screen? So this is the general landing page in CAVARTS, and really the way I think about navigating is what's happening up here and what's happening over here. And to be honest, I don't use the left-hand side too much, except when I'm into modules and more. So our welcome is kind of the things we want pinned for new people and the newest information. Our feed, as you know, are just kind of posts like Facebook posts. So we have Song Sung True series coming up again by Tom. Guitar Shop is going to be this Saturday where they're talking about electric guitars. Here is the Taylor Guitar Tour that he was talking about. All of our lessons, though, and our live events that we record live in this weirdly named modules and more. So this is really our lessons. And it's a little cumbersome because it's kind of as we add more content, it just becomes, we jokingly call it the forever scroll. So this is topically the iTag program, which is our program for brand new guitar players. The Guitar Brigade lessons, tonight's live event, and all of our past live events are here. Anything that we put out there that is a self-paced lesson or academic program is going to be found here. And the very end is live events that we make it easier here. You can also find live events here. A lot of people don't know that if they go here, and this is only by default showing the ones that haven't happened yet, you could always find all of our live events by clicking the past button, and it shows you, again, the forever scroll. There's all of our book clubs that we were doing and the announcements for that. So in the modules and more, when we talked about we talked a little bit about using the pentatonic scale and a few of those notes to create a motif or a way to start thinking about soloing. And I wanted to show you that in the Guitar Player's Toolkit, there is a whole section. This Guitar Player's Toolkit was written for the new guitarist or any guitarist that's interested in making, original music with their guitar. It doesn't have to be songs with lyrics. It could be just instrumentation. But there's a section called Let's Create Some Music. And there's this whole section on what a motif is. And, a motif simply is a repetitive, it's kind of the hook for the song. And so we talk a little bit, you could have a chordal motif, and we have two examples using Sweet Home Alabama. The D, C, add 9, and G is the beginning of Sweet Home Alabama, as well as Can't You See? So there's chordal motifs. Obviously, when we're soloing, there's note motifs. And so these teach a little bit how you could create melody lines using, which is kind of what we're doing with soloing. And I wanted to show you down here. If we go to, and so this is now the left-hand side's a little bit more helpful because instead of backing all the way out, I can just scroll on the lessons that I want to get to show you. So the next thing I want to show you is in our iJam series. One of the things we put in there is this, are you experienced? Nope, I'm sorry, go your own way. Part of this is the pentatonic. So here's a video that has all 5 of the shapes. We only covered one of them. Here's a discussion about how you can use and just to be clear, I know this could be a little confusing. There's 5 pentatonic shapes, period. If you know where the root note is, then you can make it a major pentatonic or you can make it a minor pentatonic. But the same 5 shapes live for major and minor. You're not learning 10 different shapes. You're only learning 5, but you need to know when to apply it to a major scale and to a minor scale. And so we have a whole lot of information here. Here's some jam tracks if you wanted to try playing around in different jam tracks. And then finally, because there's just a lot of interest in this topic of pentatonics, we created a new section in the Guitar Brigade called Pentatonic Shapes. And it really is all of our pentatonic resources that have been living out there, and we will post tonight's lesson there as well. But this starts with a couple PDFs that diagram out the 5 pentatonic shapes, or an extended shape that shows you the safe notes to bend, or if you want to add what they call a little blues note, a little chromatic scale, all on one shape. Again, there's the 5 shapes. This was a live event we did on matching a pentatonic shape with chord shapes. There's a link to an 8-week free course on YouTube that's all about using basically 1.5, well, 1.5 here and a half here to create solos as well. So we tried to make it a little bit easier for you to find some of the material that's on here. If you have thoughts, ideas that you want us to cover on the Guitar Brigade, we are all ears.
Thanks everyone
David?
for coming. Keep shedding.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night.